Hey guys, it's Matt at the cabin again. It is chilly outside, but we're going to be in for a very, very cold snap here starting tomorrow, where in Fahrenheit temps we're going to be in the single digits with wind chills -20. So it's going to be pretty nasty. So I taken advantage of today, spending some time in the cabin, just reflecting on the week, and got me thinking about a couple different types of stress. So this week was kind of a stressful week at work. Everybody has those. And I really believe that largely because, I'm sober. One of the biggest benefits of being sober is that you're able to deal with those daily stressors a lot more easier than otherwise would be. So in the past, after a week like this week, I probably would have resorted to, quite a bit of drinking at different nights and waited till the weekend to really say, okay, I gotta relax in here, so I'm gonna do it. So, but I didn't do that, obviously. And being sober allows you to really reflect, get your mind in the right place, and mental health just in general. I've talked about the anxiety, depression, alcohol, cyclical nature of those things in the past. Um, and I also feel that if you are, you know, quite a heavy user of alcohol, you have these spikes and these spikes and these dips that really are pretty substantial. So you have these high highs and these really low lows. And it's difficult to kind of navigate through some of those things, like things that at work might happen, or things in your personal life may happen that when you're sober and not using alcohol to kind of get through some of those things, don't really seem that bad. Um, but when you're using alcohol and you are engaging in all of that stuff, those things that really, shouldn't be that much of a stressor are very difficult to get through. Very difficult to get through. So, it had me thinking about a couple things, and just wanted to share with you. Number one, three types of stress, but then also a couple of easy, simple strategies of how to deal with those stressors. And I just, was doing some different things today that had me kind of reflect on the week and also move beyond the week. So, stress number one is positive stress. So positive stress are those little stressors that occur. You have, if you're in school, you have a test coming up, you study really hard and you do really well on the test, right? You have a presentation at work and you really want to make it a great presentation, or you have a report or whatever the case is, and you put a lot of time into it because it's stressing you out. You're a little bit nervous or anxious about it, but you crush it and you really just dominate that thing because of that stress. And that stress kind of, helped you along the way. And so that would be an example of positive stress. In a relationship or something, or in your personal life, it's the same idea. The holidays were a lot about that. So for the holidays, maybe it could have been you had a holiday gathering and, you were stressed out about gift giving, or, who knows, whatever the case is, you hadn't seen people in a long time and you wanted to make a good impression on them, whatever the case is. So that's positive stress. That's stress that you can deal with. And the results of that stress are positive. The other one, the second one is temporary stress, or I guess tolerant stress. So tolerant or tolerable stress is temporary, but it also is it's difficult because it changes the way that you might do things, but it changes them in negative ways, right? So you maybe are in a job and you don't like your boss, or you don't like your coworkers or whatever, but you got to get up and you got to do it because you got to pay the bills and you got to pay your mortgage and whatever. You have all of this stress or this pressure on you to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but there's no way out. So you trudge through it, you just get it done. But that has negative impacts on you both mentally, spiritually, and physically, because of cortisol levels in your brain and all sorts of things like that. And I'm not going to get deep into those things. But the third and most difficult type of stress is toxic stress. So toxic stress is where your brain tricks you and you start to become, the norm for you is operating within that stress environment. And here, there's a couple ways I can explain it or describe it. But if you are growing up as a child and, you live in a household where there's a lot of stress, both parents work or the parents are split and you don't see one or the other, and someone abuses alcohol in that house or other drugs or whatever the case is, that becomes your norm. And then your brain responds to that stress all the time. Your brain is taught how to respond to that stress. So in adulthood, what happens is things might not really be that stressful, but your brain has conditioned itself to respond to really low level events or low level things with that same response. So here's the analogy that I think a lot of people use and I use because it makes a lot of sense. And it's called the paper tiger. So if you walk down a path in the jungle and you come across a real tiger in the woods, what are you going to do? You're going to fight, you're going to flight, or you're going to freeze. One of those three things. That's your body's way to react to that internal stressor because it's real danger. And if you do that 5 times in a row, 100 times in a row, 500 times in a row, right? Then your body and your brain become basically programmed or wired to respond in the exact same way. And a lot of times that's good. It can save your life. It can get you out of really tough situations and bad situations. But say that 501st time you're walking down that path and in the woods there's a paper tiger. Not a real tiger, not a real threat, should have no stress for you. You're still going to respond in the same way. You are going to fight, flight, or freeze because that is how your body and your brain have learned to be conditioned, even though there's no real stressor there. So that's a toxic, stressful environment. And, when your brain gets rewired like that, the parts of your brain that are supposed to be reasoning and kind of work through that stuff, they don't work. Your emotional part of your brain pops and you really are unable to get it back down and to control it pretty quickly. And that toxic stress has profound impacts in a lot of different ways. And those profound impacts are physical, due to like blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, all of those things, obesity. Those things are also mental health. They have huge impacts negatively on mental health because it can increase anxiety, depression, creates a huge sense of insecurity with people, and they always seek validation outside of themselves because they don't really see that they're going to be a problem solver, that these things just happen over and over and over to them. So here are a couple steps to deal with those things. First and foremost, if you are a user, if you're drinking alcohol, you have to stop drinking alcohol. Cut back on it. Set yourself some goals. Whatever you need to do. Don't rely on that to be a stress reliever because it's that cyclical effect. You're going to think it's going to help with some of those things. It's just going to make it worse, right? You think it's going to help you relate with people and get more friends. It's just going to alienate you and create this this lonely atmosphere where you only have friends because of that. And then that's very difficult. So first of all, you got to recognize it. What stress are you in? And ask yourself this question, 2 questions actually. Number 1, is this stress, is this issue going to matter tomorrow? Is it going to matter next week? If the answers to those 2 questions is no, then let it go. It's not a big deal. You have to teach yourself how to let those things go because it's not going to impact you or anybody else tomorrow or the next day or the next week. Very minor thing, move on from it, let it go, get to the next thing. If the answer is yes, then certainly you need to spend some time on it. You need to really focus in and like say, how do I deal with this? Who's around me that can help me? And then ultimately, how do I then relieve some of the stress? How do I train my mind and my brain to recognize what is stressful and what's not stressful? Again, alcohol impairs your ability to do this substantially. So that's number 1. Number 2, there are some things that you can do, right? You can connect with people socially in very healthy ways. You can get things off your chest with people that you can connect with and have great conversations about it and then move on from it. You can get in nature and go for great walks and, solve it your ambulando. Walking solves it all. You can exercise and really get your endorphins going and get that stress out of your system that way. You can meditate. Maybe that's something that you want to do. You can use meditation. Those are all kind of longer term things that you can do once you've identified that it's a stressor and then how to work through it later on, right? So I had a stressful week for different reasons professionally. And this morning I went for a great 4-mile hike. It was awesome. It was quiet. There was solitude. I could think through things. And then at the end of that walk, I kind of felt a lot better. I worked through some stuff. I had a plan for some stuff. And at the end of the day, with a couple of other things, I just kind of decided I don't have to do anything for that. That's not my responsibility. I'm going to let that stuff go. And I'm going to address these things when I can address them in the best way that I can address them. But in the moment, if you feel yourself being very stressed, lots of anxiety, not able to work through something because of the stress and the cortisol and everything that's flooding your mind, breathing techniques can really, really help. So one breathing technique is a couple of quick breaths in and a long breath out. Think about when babies, when they cry, they kind of do those really quick breaths in and then they wail and get it out. So it's like, if you do that a couple of times, you're kind of resetting your brain, and you're resetting your heart rate. So that's number one. A second breathing technique is to pretend like you're blowing off a hot cup of coffee or a cup of soup and you're just kind of blowing across it like that. Can help if you do that over time. 5-1-5, 5, one breath for 5 big seconds in. You hold it for a good long second, 5 seconds out. You do that 4 or 5 times. And the last one is ocean breathing. You imagine that you're sitting on the ocean and those waves are crashing. And every time that wave crashes in, you take a breath to be very rhythmic with your breaths, and you kind of control that. So those are 4 things that I use. I teach my kids about them. I talk to employees about them. Those are different ways that in the moment you're able to work through some stress. But I will say this, first and foremost, this is a channel about sobriety. And if you are using alcohol to deal with stress, you're going to fall right into that cyclical nature of anxiety, depression, alcohol, and you're just going to have to start over the next day. It's not going to solve anything. Your focus becomes off of those stressful things, and you forget about that stuff until you become sober again, and then you got to deal with it at a later time, and you have less time to do it. So number one, get sober. Don't deal with things with alcohol. And there's obviously, I talk a lot about AA. The Meeting Guide app is a great resource. Talk to other people who have been through the same things that you've been through, or that you're going through if you have issues with alcohol, like I did in the past. Or you can use smartrecovery.com. There's a ton of stuff out there. But hopefully you can first identify, here are the 3 stressors, right? Positive stress, tolerable stress, toxic stress. What you can do long-term to deal with some of that based on what your habits are and what you like to do. And then also in the moment, what you were able to do short-term. How do you reset your mind and reset your breathing in the short term so you can think through stuff? And the number one question when it comes up is this going to matter tomorrow, or is this going to matter next week? If the answer is no, you have to learn to let it go. Hopefully that will help you. It has helped me along the way. Post other ideas and thoughts if you want to. And again, this is Matt at the cabin. It is cold out. Love it out here. This is my getaway. It is my mentally and spiritually safe place where I come to reset, and that's what I'm doing. So I believe in you. Believe in yourself. Get after it. Get sober, and it'll be a lot much easier, and you're going to have a greater life. Bye for now.